after weeks of having subcompact crossovers for testers, I do kind of miss having something a lot bigger. So I'm happy to report that in my possession is this, the Mitsubishi Strada Athlete, and I am here to tell you what it's like. Now the Strada Athlete sits above the GT, meaning this is now the range topper of the Strada lineup. And just by looking at it, you can immediately tell that it's a totally different model from the rest of the range. A lot of it is blacked out. You have this panel that's blacked out, you have the grille, the roof, the side mirror caps, and even the rear bumper. Now the wheels are of interest. They're actually the same ones you could find in the GT. But in this case, you guessed it, they're also blacked out. And just in case you want to remind people what kind of pickup you're driving, this has two huge graphics on each side of the pickup with the word Strada just strewn across the rear quarters of this truck. Now we are reviewing a pickup after all, so I think it's better to start with a bed before we hop inside. Now unfortunately, the Strada has one of the smallest beds in its class. Its main competitors such as the Ranger and Hilux have longer and wider beds, so those things can load more. But if you're more of a light-duty loader, the Strada isn't so bad. Your loading bay still pretty wide, and wheel arch intrusion isn't so bad either. Bed height, well, it's somewhat extended by these sports bars, so you can stack slightly taller items here. Comes standard with a bed liner, and in the case of the Strada Athlete, you get the aforementioned sports bar, which is, you guessed it, trimmed in gloss black. Here at the back of the Strada Athlete, it's like most Strada models, so it's actually pretty well equipped. What I like about most is this. There are two USB ports hidden right by this cubby hole. So that means you don't have to argue about chargers or charging when you're on the road. Another thing that amused me about the back seats and the back area of the Strada and Strada Athlete are these rear air conditioning vents. Now, there is a vent, but amusingly, it doesn't have the vents you usually find. Instead, it has a diffuser for you to redirect the air. That's something rather unusual. Now, Mitsubishi likes to point out their J-line design with the Strada, and the Athlete is no different. So what J-line is that it allows these backrests to be slightly more reclined than other pickups. So rather than being upright and straight, well, you can actually have a bit more comfort because the backs are more reclined than your usual pickup. So that also makes it more comfortable for longer distance drives. As for room, well, legroom isn't going to be an issue, headroom isn't going to be an issue either. But if you're going to regularly carry 3 people aboard, might be a bit of a tight squeeze because the Strada is one of the narrowest pickups in its class. So anyone who sits here should be, well, on the slim side. In the Athlete, the interior design as a whole is largely the same as the GT and the GLS. Now, the main differences here in the Athlete are these orange and black combination seats, which are leather by the way, and even these knee bash panels, which are trimmed in orange. Now, there's a lot of orange stitching, well, on the seats, you have it on the steering wheel, and you even have it on the door panels as well. Now, as for features, well, the Athlete comes comprehensively equipped. After all, this sits above the GT model. So you get automatic climate control, you have cruise control, audio controls on the wheel, a comprehensive infotainment system. You have a lot of auxiliary ports all over the cabin. You have one USB port here, and you have another one inside the center cubby hole. Cup holders, you have 2 here at the front, and there are huge bottle holders in each door. So they can hold a 1-liter bottle quite easily. other convenience features, you have an automatic dimming rear view mirror, and you have automatic headlights as well. Now, something that's always amused me with Mitsubishi is that they don't like putting plastic paddle shifters, and it applies for the Strada Athlete and the Montero Sport, I have to mention. So instead of plastic, Mitsubishi put magnesium flappy paddles. So that does bring up some of the ambience. However, I do wish Mitsubishi would put more soft touch materials in here. And if you've noticed, if you sat in a Montero Sport and a Strada, their interiors are dramatically different. The Montero Sport has a slightly more swooping design. This is a little more upright and straightforward. I do wish this would be soft touch and along with the top bits of your door panel. If they made these soft touch, it would really make the Strada a little bit more premium, especially this Athlete version. It's been a while since I drove a Mitsubishi Strada, and the last one I drove was a GLS 4x4 with a 6-speed manual. And I enjoyed that car. However, I did find some of the controls a touch on the heavy side. The steering was a bit heavy, the clutch, to the unacquainted, they'll probably find it a bit heavy too. So imagine my surprise when I hopped into the Athlete, because I was expecting more of the same experience, except that we have an automatic this time around. So I was expecting the steering to be heavy and stuff like that. But I was genuinely surprised with this model because it doesn't have the slack and the heaviness of the steering of the manual version. And now I don't know if, maybe it's been a while since I drove one, but I don't remember the Strada riding this well. Okay, so it's no luxury car, but for a pickup, it rides pretty good. It's not overly choppy or overly harsh. It is firm, but that's a given in a pickup. But all in all, the ride is pliant for what is essentially a load hauler. Small bumps and potholes don't really upset the balance of the car, and it doesn't send shock waves up your spine, unlike old pickups. This one, for what essentially is a load lugger, is rather comfortable, I have to say. Another thing that surprised me about the Strada, or particularly the Athlete, is just how quiet it is. Yes, you'll still hear that diesel gruffness, but when you compare it to the pickups of the past, this is, well, essentially a luxury car. And it also shows you just how far pickups have come over the years. They're more car-like, keyword being like. They don't totally drive like cars, because they're way high off the ground. But it doesn't come with the extra bulk and baggage of all that weight and that length. And that's what's impressive about this pickup. It drives smaller than it actually feels. Now, having driven the manual version, I have to say that the brakes in the automatic, well, they don't give as much confidence when you're stepping on them. Because the moment you step on them, it feels like nothing's happening and it's very vague. You could see that you're slowing down, but you don't feel like it. That's a rather unusual feeling. In the manual, it was more direct, it was more responsive, the brakes. So if Mitsubishi can just make the biting point of the brakes that little bit earlier, then we'll have more confidence under braking. Of course, I'm not saying the brakes are weak. They're actually one of the strongest one I tried out before. And it's the same case for the Montero Sport. It's the same case for this one. But again, brake feel could use a little bit of improvement. Now, when it comes to performance, I wouldn't call this lacking at all. So the 2.4 liter turbo diesel has Mitsubishi's variable valve timing system called MyVec. So yes, this is a diesel with variable valve timing. And that's a cool piece of kit in essentially a workhorse engine. And putting that tech in something like this makes it a lot more efficient. Now we'll get to the power and acceleration bit in a moment, but I just have to tell you that in light traffic, I am doing 13.5 kilometers per liter. Granted, the roads are very free right now, and I'm cruising at about 50 kilometers per hour, but 13.5 kilometers per liter is quite the achievement. Now for the power bit. It's got 181 horsepower, and you're not gonna feel shortchanged at all. You're gonna have the confidence to overtake and all that. Torque, on the other hand, is 430 Newton meters, so that's still not bad at all. However, it does lag behind some of its competition. Some of them are putting out 500 Newton meters, 450 Newton meters, stuff like that. But it's the way the Strada delivers power, slow revving and stuff like that. This is responsive. Like, one quick prod of the throttle, and it just squirts forward. So the Strada Athlete, well, it's not the most spacious, it doesn't carry the heaviest loads, and it's not the biggest in its class. But there are a couple of reasons why you should consider one of these. Well, one, it is comfortable for a pickup. It rides more like an SUV rather than a load lugger. Other reason? Well, its performance. Sure, it's not the most powerful, but it does have confidence when it comes to passing and pulling yourself out of sticky situations. But perhaps the clincher for me is the standard safety equipment. It's one of the most comprehensive in its class, and some luxury cars don't even have these features. So if you prioritize safety above everything else, the Strada Athlete is a good choice for you. Now, at 1.7, well, nearly 1.8 billion pesos, it is pricey for a pickup. But if you take the sum of its whole parts, you're getting a fully loaded pickup, capable four-wheel drive, and one of the safest pickups you can buy. This isn't going to let you down at all. This has been Anton and Jess of AutoIndustriya.com. If you enjoyed this video, we have lots more coming. And at the same time, you can also check out our past reviews. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. Thank you for watching.